So I'm working on the border for the section that I'm adding. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before in other videos, really what I'm doing here. I've got these little spacers from Amazon, like this. These happen to be 3/8 inch spacers, which is the space I wanted because I think it looks about right given the size of the false joints. See, they're about 3/8 inch, so that's why I went with 3/8 inch spacers. And I have these 3/8 inch spacers. These are in-place spacers. They stay in. They're permanent. You don't take them out or anything like that. What I've done is I've cut a piece of wood to use for screening, because while my patio stones are 1 7/8, these are 1 3/4. So they're 1/8 of an inch thinner. So the way I've been doing this is I'll take the gravel, pile it up next to the pavers, and then I will actually take this, rest it on the patio stones, and then screed it across to get my height for my bricks. Now what I've done is I've actually cut this wood about 1/16 of an inch shy, so just a little bit shy of the 1 3/4, on purpose because I need the stones a little bit higher so I can kind of hammer them into place, or I have some room to adjusting. If I start out too low, then that gives me problems. This, however, this board also comes in tremendously handy because I'm using it as a straight edge to make sure these are level with each other. So what I can do is, where I've leveled this one up, see, this doesn't rock. There's no gaps under the board. There's no gaps under here. I can take this way, here. Now that one, see, I've got a little bit, it's going down. Whenever I can rock a little bit. So this side's a little bit low. On this end, same thing. So I need to adjust this whole brick a little bit. Well, no, actually take that back. No, it's not low. Actually, it's high on this side is what's happening. See, here it's coming up and there it's coming up. So I need to actually knock down the side a little bit. So I will just take my dead blow hammer. Sorry about the finger. I'll give it some gentle wrapping, and then we'll see what it does. Now it's not moving at all. And that's all it took. Just a little bit, but that's not enough for me to worry about. That's less than 1/16 of an inch. So that's good, that's good. This one here, same kind of thing. It's got just a little bit of high side on the side closest to me. It's probably just a hair high on this left end. So I will tap it here a little bit. Check it again. And there you go. That's all it took. Just a little tap. Rocks just a hair, but that's so close, I'm not going to worry about that little bit, because that's not enough to be noticeable to the eye. Okay, and then I'm just going to go through and just keep working. When I get to the corners, I'm cutting stones for the corners. I've got to make multiple cuts to be able to go around the corner. So actually on that corner there, I cut the right side of the one, then the left and the right, left and the right, left and the right, and then the left. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cuts to get those cornerstones to go around that corner like that. And then beveling all the edges with a grinder, which is time consuming, but if you want it to look right. And then I made some adjustments as well. So I'm going to keep on working, and then when I get around this corner, I'm going to work around this corner. So now I'm at the corner. I'm just going to kind of tell you my approach. There's no real textbook way to do this that I know of. I don't want this gap to get real big. It'll look kind of weird. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to do an exact circle. I mean, I just don't know how to do that. So what I'm looking for is, where does the gap get substantially larger? Probably right about in here somewhere, I'd say. And then I'm going to draw a line that's roughly, and I'm eyeballing this, mind you, okay, but roughly what's perpendicular with this arc of this edge. Like I said, it's not an exact science, but from where I made my mark, which is right in here, to the corner, let's say about here or so. I'm trying to avoid really steep angles too, because it starts getting kind of weird and edges start getting off and stuff starts getting really difficult to manage when you start getting edges that are real sharp angles. So I guess I'm going to go a little bit probably from here just because the edge happens to be there. And I'm going to go ahead and mark. Use my foot to hold this down. I'll go ahead and mark because there was my spot that I marked, and that's where it starts. The gap starts really noticeably getting larger. And I'm going to make a mark. And then I'm going to cut that out. I'll probably end up having to round out this corner a little bit. Otherwise it'll look kind of funny. It'll be kind of jutting out, so I'll probably come across and have to round that out a bit to make it look right. But that's something I'll adjust when I get to my next piece. Okay, so now I cut this one on the wet tile saw. And as you can see, when I lay in a piece next to it, see how I'm going to have a piece sticking out? So I'm probably going to have to trim that and round that off a bit with the grinder. But this will actually have a 3/8 inch, gap. I'm trying to maintain the gap. And I'm trying to maintain roughly the gap in here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm trying to get fairly close, or as close as reasonable. And then when it starts getting too large again, right around in, I'm just eyeballing here, about in here, I'm going to go again. I'm going to draw roughly perpendicular to the curve. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Let's see, I'm putting that to where the left edge of this brick here is about 3/8 from the one before it, or so. And then where my gap widens, well, actually, let me back that up a little bit. I'll probably go right about here or so. And then I'll do roughly perpendicular to my curve. I'll draw a line and then I'll cut that. I don't want to go too small because I don't want little nibbles of bricks, but so I don't know. You kind of have to adjust according to what works for you and what you're happy with. I might go back up to here a little bit, I think, because I'm getting kind of small if I cut back here. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to mark that, and I'm going to cut that out on the wet saw. And then I'm also going to go ahead and mark this here too, parallel to this. Just draw an extension line through here, and then I'm going to cut that off too, and then round the edge just a little bit on this side. Okay, so I got this piece cut, and here comes the next piece. Now what I'm going to do is, remember, I'm trying to roughly maintain the right spacing here. Doesn't have to be exact, but trying to get in the ballpark. So where I've got a gap up here, I'm going to mirror that down here, and I'm just eyeballing, and I'm going to make a mark. And I'll draw a straight line, and I'm going to cut that. That should give me my gap right here. And then here, I'm going to do the same thing again. Where it starts going past kind of that 3/8, oops, sorry. Whoop, there we go, that's better. About that 3/8 where I want it to be. I'm going to mark a line on there that's about perpendicular to whatever the edge is. I'm going to draw that and I'm going to cut it, and then I'll cut both sides out and put that in place. Alright, so now I cut this piece. I cut that left side that I marked, and I cut this right side roughly perpendicular, and then I bevel the edge to kind of match the bevel that comes from the factory. So I beveled the edge. And I just found that by doing the one side, the right side in particular, roughly perpendicular in each successive one like that, it keeps me from having really sharp, really funky looking angles, which make it really hard to make stuff look right. But as you see here, I'm poking out again from the next brick here. So I'm going to put a spacer in here to make sure the spacing's right against the patio stone, and then I'm going to cut across here and curve that edge a little bit, just like I did over here. See how this is curved? I cut the edge, cut that little straight part off, and then I curved it a little bit with the diamond bit on the grinder. And I'm going to do the same thing here to kind of give me that curvature, so it doesn't look funny. Obviously that piece sticking out looks so I drew my line straight across. I cut it off here, and then I rounded this a little bit, and then bevel the edge to match the other edge. And see, when I stand up and look at it, it gives me a curve. Now, it's not a perfect curve, nor is it meant to be, but it curves with it. And I think it looks pretty good. And if that's not good enough, somebody else can do better, then have at it. But, and then I'll go from here, and I'll just keep working my way down to the corner. The hard part's done because the curve's kind of a pain, but I think it looks a lot better when it's done this way to match the other curves and the curve of the retaining wall. All right, I got the rest of the border stones put down. I had to cut a couple of short ones to make the corner there work, because it was just over the size of one, and that wouldn't look good because I had too big of a gap. As you can see, I've got the little spacers in there, which those really help to help keep your stones straight, or in this skimming the bricks straight, whatever. So next is I'm going to get rid of the extra gravel to deepen that out a little bit, where towards the metal edging, to make it a little deeper on the concrete on that end. And then once I spoon the extra stuff out of there, then I gotta go get me some concrete and mix up some concrete and put it in here like I did over there, and throw some pebbles on top.